All right. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into the program. This is Green Dot Daily. We are Action Network's daily sports betting show. I'm your host, Brendan Glasheen. We're here every weekday getting you set for all the sports action today, including the coming weekend. We're here at noon Eastern, live in the Action Network app, also over on the Action Network YouTube page. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION when signing up to get Dellera has a game circled on the NBA calendar that he wants to discuss, a couple of plays there. Tanner McGrath is going to join us. He breaks down a couple of spots he likes in men's college basketball. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up later in the show. But first, we continue to get ready for Championship Sunday. Kansas City and Cincinnati, Philadelphia, San Francisco, AFC, NFC title games. Just to give you folks an understanding of what the people are betting on for the coming weekend, here are some player props that folks like. Christian McCaffrey to be the first touchdown scorer is getting some love. We've also got Jamar Chase to score a touchdown at any time, minus 105. Patrick Mahomes under passing yards. That's really not that surprising because people are taking the cheese on the injury, clearly. But, take it behind the curtain moments ago, I was enlightened as to why that might not be a good idea. We'll get to that here as we welcome in the duo from the Action Network podcast. They gave you the betting preview earlier in the week. They also give you the Sunday six-pack as they do all season long, Stuckey and Chris Raybon. Raybon, just real quick, spend a second on this Mahomes thing and enlighten folks. The last time he had a high ankle sprain, what happened?
The last time Patrick Mahomes had a high ankle sprain, he dropped back 46 times. He did not scramble once, and he threw for 450 yards. So there's a big re-injury risk. Obviously, that's a fact that he could leave the game. I hope that's why people are betting the under. But if they're just betting the under because they think he's going to be less efficient or something, but he's going to play the whole game, I don't think that's how you want to look at it. If anything, they're going to throw with a higher volume. He's going to scramble a lot less. He's probably more than ever likely, to pass for a lot of yards. It's the rushing that I think you would be worried about. That's where you would say, okay, well, last time he didn't scramble at all. Even if he is healthy enough to scramble, he could be instructed not to scramble. We saw that with a guy like Jalen Hurts a few weeks ago. This guy's instructed not to take contact, and he runs for 17 yards instead of his usual 50. So, I would be careful with that, Mahomes. And I mean, to your point, we see the number going up. So, it's not like people are hammering this under, and it was at 273 to open the week, and money's come in, and the books are lowering it. They're raising it. That should give you a red flag if you are one of those under bettors.
Yeah, I think he threw for 4 touchdowns in the second quarter of that game, in that week 2 game in 2019. And I think that there's the two I personally bet the over on his yardage prop, passing yards prop. And I think that there's 2 things that could happen. One, he's fine and the ankle doesn't really hinder him. Then you're getting this at a discount. Or 2, I still think they're going to throw it a lot, and it's going to be a lot of quick passing. And the Bengals run D has been really good, especially with DJ Reader in there. And where it might impact him is it's on his plant foot. So he might have more errant throws. So it might lead to a couple more turnovers. And then, you're either playing from behind or, it's still a competitive game. So you drive down the field, he throws a pick trying to make a play. Okay, Bengals, maybe they score. It's just opportunities for more yards. And then, like Raybon said, you're taking away one other avenue, or likely taking away one other avenue, which is his rushing yards. And in the playoffs before, he could run for, 40 to 50 yards, which you might be taking off the table, which might now turn to passing yards. So, I think you're getting this cheap.
Okay, I wanted to spend a second on that because I was enlightened and took the cheese on it at first glance. So I'm glad we talked about it. See, that's what the host, that's another mechanism for the host. They can take the hit and play the dumb angle, and then you're enlightened, and then you learn something.
There's a greater injury risk, which, to be fair, is something to consider. But now that we brought this up, he's guaranteed to throw for 240 tops. But anyway.
I'm sure Ravel is on the under.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, right. So I just had to make up for his absence and no Darren Ravel today on the show. May I add quickly, then we'll move on. You can't get Mahomes passing attempts right now on BetMGM, and you're not finding rushing yards. And that makes a lot of sense because we don't know what he's going to look like. So maybe there'll be a live opportunity once the game starts on Sunday night. Okay, let's go to the picks. Sunday six-pack. Raybon, your first one that you want to share with us.
I like the under in this 49er and Eagle game. I look at both of these teams and I just think the offenses have obviously shown capability to play really well this year, but both defenses are top 5. And when these offenses have played strong defenses, of which each other might be the best one they face yet, their production has noticeably been decreased. So if you look at the 49ers, you have a smaller sample with Brock Purdy, obviously, but Dallas is probably the closest thing to what they're going to face with Philadelphia. And they go from averaging over 400 yards and about 35 points a game in Purdy starts to 19 points and just over 300 total yards. So big dip there. And then Philadelphia has only played 3 top 10 defenses in DVOA with Jalen Hurts under center. And they go from being a team that's averaging over 30 points a game and over 400 yards and about 6 yards a play to when they're facing top 10 defenses, they're averaging just under 24 points. They're averaging just over 300 yards, so about a 100-yard decrease in total yardage and just over 5 yards a play. So about a yard difference in yards per play. Just the efficiency goes way down as you would expect it to. So I just expect this to be a defensive battle. You know, Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts, even these last few games, you know, he doesn't look totally back. The second half of the year, his numbers have been way down, and that's even facing 4 bottom 3 defenses and then another bottom 5 pass defense over his last 5 games alone. And the numbers still haven't been great compared to what he was doing in the first half. So I just think both of these defenses show up here like the under. And you also got the John Hussey factor. He just lets them play. And that usually is going to help the defense because you're going to get less DPIs, less defensive holdings, things that extend drives. And the guy's called one rushing the passer all year, which I think is pretty relevant in a game where you're going to get massive pressure from both sides. More likely than not, you're going to get some hits on the quarterback. This guy's just not calling and giving offenses these cheap roughing the passer calls. So about 60% of his games have gone unders outdoors. So love the under for a lot of different factors. I would bet it down to 46. I think you like it down in there because you get like a 20-20 game. Even if it goes to overtime, you still have some insurance there. But I think this is going to be like 20-17. 17-13, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Extending drives helps move the clock, which is helpful for the under. Right?
You're going to get a lot of runs too. Both of these teams, I think, come out pretty run heavy.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Let's go to Stuckey. What do you got? Your first one.
Yeah, I'll kind of parlay off of that and go with Jalen Hurts under rushing yards. I think this right on 49 last I saw it. He's gone under this number 9 of his past 13 games. And if you look, Raybon just mentioned this, over his past 3 weeks, even against the Giants' awful run defense, hasn't sniffed it. They've played a really easy schedule of opposing defenses. Now you're going up against an elite San Francisco run defense that's fully healthy with linebackers that can go sideline to sideline and match Hurts' speed, which is important because you don't want Hurts to break a big run here. That's the biggest risk. And I think the 49ers have the defensive speed, especially at linebacker and safety, to contain Hurts. And they're going to have a really good scout here on the Eagles' runs, and I think a lot of teams have started to do that. If you look at Hurts' rushing, the first 2 games of the year, he's running for like 150 yards a game, and that has started to come down here. You also have to consider the fact that San Francisco is a snail, right? They are slow, and they run it a ton, and what does that do? That reduces the number of plays in a game. So there might not be as many opportunities for Hurts here to run the ball. And then once you get down to conference championship, Super Bowl, lines get pretty efficient. So when I try to think about how are these teams going to approach the game strategically, and if you look at the 49ers run defense, when they were healthy, a lot of people will point to like Mariota ran for 50 yards. They were down 6 or 7 starters and lost Ward in the middle of that game to a groin injury. Yep. Completely depleted unit. You go back to week 1, Fields had like 11 carries for 27 yards. When they're fully healthy, this is an elite run defense. So if I'm the Eagles, I'm probably going to attack on early downs more through the air. San Francisco is still a good secondary, but definitely more vulnerable there. So you might see the Eagles go a little bit more pass heavy on early downs, which would also help this under. So I think this number is too high. Let's go with Hurts under rush yards.
And against defenses this year that we consider good, you look at DVOA. I mean, Dallas held to 27 rushing yards. Jalen Hurts. Tennessee, now he didn't have. They built a big lead in that game, and AJ Brown went off. We know that, but he didn't have to run it all that much. That may not be a great example.
Well, Tennessee's a good example in that why would you run it against them? The run D was so good. Let's attack with Brown down the field the whole game. So like in a way there's some parallels there.
Washington 20 yards in the first meeting and 28 in the second. I think that's a good parallel because Washington I think they finished 10th in pass DVOA, and they were great against the run all year, and they trended up against versus the pass. But he didn't clear 30 yards against Washington in 2 meetings.
Yeah, and now you're playing a team that theoretically wants to have, especially on the road here and early on. There's nothing more that Shanahan would love than in the first half than have like an 8.5-minute scoring drive. So all that time, because the 49ers are slow as anyone. All that time, Hurts is on the sideline, right? So they've also played a number of poor offenses. This is a pretty good offense. So a lot of times their defense is dominating, might not be as dominant here. So I think there's a lot of reasons why this will go under.
Also one more, but we can move on. Probably the second highest injury risk besides Mahomes on this entire
Jalen Hurts. Yeah.
I mean, I still don't think he's 100%. I mean, they just ran the ball well with their backs against the Giants. Hurts' numbers weren't great. And he also just gets hit a lot. So even if he's not technically still hurt, I mean, you're projecting a guy to run 10, 11 times. He can run as many as 17, and that doesn't count, all the times he's going to be in the offensive backfield dropping back with Nick Bosa and those guys coming after him. So, I mean, still a pretty big injury risk. You hate to say it when you're taking an under on a guy, but it's true.
Yeah, and they're a small favorite, so there's maybe 5% higher chance that you'll get a couple 1 or 2 kneel downs if you need them, but that's less of a when you're at 49. It's tough to make the case for kneel downs. But
never say never, man. Never say never.
Maybe he decides that if there's they're up and you got to waste just a couple more seconds, and he pulls a Mahomes and goes back 10 yards for a kneel if we need it. So
you always get the Niners right before the half. They love to like double up. Maybe they score with like 8 seconds left. Philly gets the ball back, has to take that kneel down at the 25.
If you're interested in an under, you should grab it now because it's down to 47.5 over at BetMGM, and it's at -115. So that number's moving down. So if you like an under on Jalen Hurts, you probably want to get it soon. Raybon, what's your second one?
Talk about a number moving down. Let's go with Quez Watkins under. I think it's still at 15.5. I mean, this guy's median with Dallas Goedert in the lineup is 0 receiving yards. He's had more goose eggs than he's had games with positive receiving yards over a 13-game sample with Dallas Goedert. He's just used completely different. He averages under 2 yards. Under 2 targets per game with Goedert in the lineup. Nearly 5 targets a game with Goedert out of the lineup. So completely different player. And then, a lot of people have been saying, well, he caught this long pass against them last year. Maybe they use him down the field more. We don't even know if they're going to use this guy in the game. His snap rate has been decreasing for 4 straight weeks. It was 72% 4 weeks ago. It was down to 31% last week. And for the first time all year, Zach Pascal, who's noted as a more physical run blocking receiver, also ran more routes than Watkins. And so there's a chance that this guy is just kind of turning into the number 4 instead of the number 3. We can't be certain of exactly how they're going to use him, if it was just a 1-game thing or not. But it's kind of telling that decreasing 4 straight weeks, first postseason game after a 2-week, period of which to self-scout and kind of recalibrate that this guy essentially is involved in the passing game in the lowest capacity that he was all year. So even if he's getting his normal usage, I have this guy with a median of about 12 receiving yards. And again, it's been 0. So I could even be too high there, but love the under for Quez Watkins. I just don't see why they would look to get the ball in their 5th or 6th option's hands in this important of a game.
And it correlates with what other Action Network contributors have said about the impact of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. The fact that they think they're going to have big games. Their receiving yard totals, some picks on the shows this week have been over for their numbers, so that would make sense to fade someone towards the bottom of the depth chart. Stuckey, what's your second one?
All right. Well, I was thinking about maybe mixing under receptions or McCaffrey under rushing yards, but Raybon gave up an under, and then a Quez under, and then I gave out a under prop on Hurts rushing. So like this is the least fun show as far as what you want to root for on Sunday. So I'm going to go with an over. We'll go with an over prop. Joe Burrow over rushing yards. think this number is a bit too low for a number of reasons. Number one, last week he ran for, I think, close to 30 yards. He ran in the 40s when they played the Chiefs earlier this season. It's a huge game. These elite quarterbacks in huge games will run more often. A third down, they're going to put their body on the line here and go get the first down. And they're playing a defense that runs a lot of man that kind of encourages quarterback runs and is very susceptible to quarterback runs. If you look since their bye week, before the bye, they played a bunch of statues. But since the bye week, 11 games, 9 of the 11 quarterbacks that they faced have ran for at least 22 yards, average 35 yards per game. And they've given up the second most rushing yards to quarterbacks since the bye week, I think around 385 yards over those 11 games. So, and then you take into account that there's offensive line injuries. Now, Burrow, who still would have cleared this number easily last week, I think the offensive line benefited from the conditions last week. Hard to get a pass rush when it's snowy and icy. Won't be the case this weekend. So I think the offensive line issues will be a bigger factor, which means what? Burrow might be scrambling a little bit more often. So I think this sets up in a lot of ways for Burrow to get into at least the 20s here. So I like this, and it's we'll give you something fun to root for instead of rooting for things not to happen, which is usually the sharp way to go. But I like Burrow over rushing yards.
I got to say about these under, I don't think they're not fun, because when you're betting one player under, especially for props, you're betting one player under, you're literally rooting for everything else
Everybody
to happen,
else. Yeah,
but that one thing. So that's the way I look at it personally, and I have a lot of fun winning those bets.
Yep.
The matchup when these teams met back in early December, Joe Burrow ran the ball 11 times for 46 yards against Kansas City.
Yep, 9 for 48 if you remove 2 kneel downs. So yeah, I think that this number is too short. And Raybon mentioned on our podcast his scramble rate's been going up, which is usually a sticky
it's
factor.
over 5% over the last, I think, half of the year or so. And it was in the high 3% before that. But I think Stuckey, I think we might need to find some, if there's a prop of quarterbacks, to which quarterback is going to lead the day in rushing yards. I think we might have to, because I think that the favorite would be Hurts, but there's a chance Burrow could outrush him. So that if there's a prop out there, bang Burrow on that.
I would agree.
All right, Stuckey, Raybon, thanks so much for the time. Again, you can find all of these Sunday six-pack picks over on the Action Network podcast. They've got their betting preview up from earlier in the week if you want to take a listen to that over on the Action Network podcast. And you also can catch Raybon with Sean Kerner with an extensive breakdown of player prop picks for Conference Championship Sunday. Fellas, thanks so much. You have a great weekend. Enjoy the games, all right?
Yeah, you too.
Thank you, you too.
Okay.
I'm Matt Moore for the Action Network. Let's talk a little bit about DPOY and Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies, a.k.a. Trip. Jaren Jackson Jr. missed the first month of the season recovering from injury. When he returned, the Memphis Grizzlies were 20th in defensive rating. That's points allowed per 100 possessions. Since his November 15th season debut, the Grizzlies are the number 1 team in defensive rating by margin. That's not a coincidence. Jackson's impact stands out across the board, and as such, Jackson's DPOY odds have moved from plus 3,000 or longer in preseason to the consensus favorite at minus 225. Here are 3 stats why even at a minus number halfway through the season, Jackson has value to win Defensive Player of the Year. Number 1, he blocks out the sun. Jackson leads the league in blocks this season at 3.3 per game, over a half block more than second place Nick Claxton. Among all players who have played at least 20 games and 20 minutes per game, Jackson is on pace for the highest block percentage since blocks were tracked in the box score. He's blocked 11% of all shots when he's been on the floor this season. Jackson's length means that even when he has to commit to the first contest with one arm, as shown here versus Domantas Sabonis, he's able to recover with the other arm to the other side and get it clean. His block numbers are especially crazy given how many more three-pointers are taken in the modern game, and Jackson's only playing 26.1 minutes per game. In the last 10 years, only 3 other players have had seasons with at least 3 blocks per game. But notably, none of them won Defensive Player of the Year. Number 2, his versatility is elite. Opponents are shooting 41% on drives to the rim with Jackson on the floor this season, compared to 51% with him on the bench. Jackson ranks 98th percentile defending pick and roll, 98th percentile defending spot ups. He's 90th percentile defending isolations, and 64th percentile defending in pick and roll when switching on to ball handlers. Guards score in the 6th percentile versus Jackson, while centers score in just the 5th percentile. Forwards fare better at 62nd percentile, but the majority of those are catch and shoot opportunities on rotations and not directly challenging him. Take a look at this play. Darius Garland is one of the quickest and shiftiest guards in the league, and Tripp's contest arm simply shadows him all the way to the rim. Number 3, he's at the top of the league. Via cleaning the glass, the Grizzlies give up 8.1 fewer points per 100 possessions with Jackson on the floor, good for 98th percentile, and the difference with him on the court. As mentioned above, Memphis with Jackson have the number 1 defensive rating in the league. In the last 10 seasons, no player has won the award for a defense outside of the top 3, and a player from a top 2 defense has won it 8 out of the last 10 times. Jackson's odds have plummeted to minus 225 at BetMGM, but that's for good reason. His number of games might be the only thing standing in his way. If he misses more time, you will want a standing ticket on Brook Lopez or Nick Claxton in a longer number. But if Jackson stays healthy, he's the runaway winner for Defensive Player of the Year.
And this is why we say that we believe Jaren Jackson Jr. is the Defensive Player of the Year.
Well, that is certainly a compelling argument from Matt Moore, and here are the latest Defensive Player of the Year odds over at BetMGM. Jaren Jackson Jr. now at minus 210. So Moore clearly got some value. Lopez, Claxton, Adebayo, a couple of big guys filing in behind Jackson, who is a versatile defender. We'll see how the rest of the year pans out for his case. On to today's games in the association. Milwaukee coming off a nice win over Denver, on the road at Indiana as a significant road favorite. Miami and Orlando, they meet in the state of Florida. Cavaliers and Thunder are a favorite taking on Cleveland. And then a good one tonight too, Raptors and Warriors. Raptors still trying to find themselves. Are they contending? Are they not contending? And the Warriors, of course, they're home and they're still trying to get a little more consistency. Joe Dellera has some picks for tonight's slate.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Dellera, and I've got 2 of my favorite plays for today's NBA slate. Both of these picks are coming from the Warriors versus Raptors game tonight, and this is what I'm looking at. The Warriors have been dominant at home this season, and we're comparing them to the Raptors, who have actually struggled immensely on the road. At home, the Warriors are 18-6 with a plus 7.5 point differential on the season, compared to the Raptors, who are just 7-15 on the road with a minus 2 point differential. While the Raptors didn't have to travel very far from their Wednesday game against Sacramento, this matchup with the Warriors presents entirely different problems. One of the things that I think the Warriors are going to be able to do is dictate the pace of this game and get up the shots they want. The Raptors allow 3-point attempts at one of the highest rates in the league, and their opponents shoot 37.8% from 3-point range. It's not ideal when you're playing the Warriors, who shoot 38.5% from 3, which is the 4th best mark in the league. This matchup sets up well for most of the Warriors' 3-point shooters. But one of the things that the Raptors like to do is they like to force the ball out of the primary ball handler's hand. And I think that makes it a little bit harder for Steph Curry, who should be the target of the defense, to get up those shots or get up as many shots. And I think that he might defer a little bit to his counterpart, Jordan Poole. I like his spot here, and his PRA line is set at 29.5. He's exceeded this in 8 of his last 10 games, and earlier this season in December, he logged 50 PRA against the Raptors. I think that Jordan Poole should get some deferring to. I think that he'll be able to score against this Raptors team, and I think that he will continue his success here. And even if he does get double teamed a little bit, if he starts getting hot, he's also a willing passer and can rack up those assists. So I really like this at 29.5. Since the Warriors also are going to play, I think, a little bit smaller, because that's something that Steve Kerr indicated, with Draymond Green running a little bit more at the 5, I like this matchup exponentially more, because the Warriors should be able to match up with the Raptors, their length, their athleticism, and really force them into certain positions, maybe a little bit further away from the basket. And that should open up this offense for the Warriors. I expect Poole to have a great day today, and I expect that pool to be open. So I'll take the PRA and I'll lay the points with the Warriors at -5 to defend home court. So to recap, my 2 favorite plays are Jordan Poole over 29.5 PRA and the Golden State Warriors -5 against the Toronto Raptors. Best of luck on your wagers today, and enjoy the rest of your Fridays. Back to you, Brendan.
Okay, on to college basketball. Thank you, Joe. Here is your market report for some games we are looking at tonight, some mid-major games in the A-10. Davidson hosting St. Louis. St. Louis is a favorite on the road at Davidson. You can see that the folks, the people, they like St. Louis tonight in this matchup. The St. Louis Billikens, 6-1. They are just a half game back of VCU for first place in the A-10. And Davidson, we know they can be a feisty bunch, especially this time of year. They get going. They're just 5-4 at home, though, this season. Then you have Buffalo and Kent State. These two teams, they're fighting for positioning in the Mid-American Conference, both top 4. Buffalo with a bunch of teams at 4-3. Kent State 6-1, tied atop the standings with Akron. And then a good one tonight. New Mexico is laying double digits against Air Force. The people like New Mexico at home and the under. How about Tanner McGrath? It's not the America East, but he's got thoughts on tonight's slate.
What's up, guys? Tanner McGrath of the Action Network here. I'm here to break down the entire Friday college basketball slate. Not that it's an exciting one, but it's the best way to prepare yourself for a monster Saturday slate. That said, let's get into it with St. Louis, -1.5 at Davidson. You can get it -1. The money line is fine, too. Matt McCullough is just not the coach his dad was. Davidson's not that scary this year. They are due for positive regression from a shooting perspective on the offensive end, but Foster Loyer has severely regressed. He had a 122 O rating last year, just a 95 O rating this year. The interior defense is lackadaisical. Specifically, this is a bad pick-and-roll defense. They're all right against the roll man, but they rank in the 31st percentile in points per possession allowed to pick-and-roll ball handlers. And we're talking about St. Louis's Yuri Collins. Literally nobody runs the pick-and-roll more than Collins, who ranks way above average in efficiency and leads the nation in assists with over 10 per game. On the other end, Davidson will try and get on the interior too, maybe posting up, using cutters off of Loyer. But St. Louis has been a stout interior defense. They're third in the A-10 in two-point shooting allowed this season. By the way, Davidson ranks 9th in that stat. So both teams are going to try and ball screen or cut their way to the rim off their guards. One team does it a whole lot better, and that's why I'm rolling with St. Louis as a short road favorite. I'm also going with Kent State, -10, hosting Buffalo. I'm fading a very public dog in the Bulls. They're pulling in over 70% of the betting tickets right now. And I just don't know how Buffalo scores. They're reliant on transition scoring, rim pressure from a group of lengthy wings. But the Flashes are an uber stout interior defense with the second best block rate and second best steal rate in the MAC, resulting in the best turnover rate overall in the conference. The Flashes also have 4 of the top 5 defenders in the MAC by Evan Maya's defensive box plus-minus stat. And this serves 3 purposes. They can stop Buffalo from getting to the rim. They can force turnovers against a very shaky Buffalo ball handling team. And they can force Buffalo's wings to try and score in isolation, where the Bulls are horrific, and the Flashes have 4 guys that are excellent one-on-one. Kent State's offense is still a mess, but they put together one of the Mid-Majordom's best teams on the back of their defense. They also have Sincere Carey, who's dropping 17 points per game and hunting for his 2nd straight MAC Player of the Year. And I think they try to rally to find offense today in a good bounce-back spot after dropping a road game to Northern Illinois earlier this week. So I'm going to take the Flashes to win by double digits at home, where they are 6-1 against the spread as a favorite this season. Also, finally, I like Air Force plus 12.5 at New Mexico. New Mexico's been playing with fire lately in league play, due for a lot of negative regression. The Lobos have also played 3 overtime periods in their last 2 games. Meanwhile, Air Force has covered 3 of their last 4 against the Lobos, and they play at that glacial pace, which makes it hard for any opponent to cover a big number against them.
Thank you very much, pal.
That is a show. That is a week of shows for you here over at Action Network, Green Dot Daily, our daily sports betting show. Our content continues this weekend. Catch the Power Hour coming your way on Sunday ahead of championship games between the Eagles and Niners, and then, of course, Kansas City and Cincinnati, which is the later game. So check out all of our coverage on Sunday with the Power Hour, Convince Me, and the Touchdown Show. For all of our guests this week, from today, Brendan Glasheen, you all have a great weekend. Enjoy the football on Sunday. We'll be back to talk about it all and get you ready for the Super Bowl 57. We'll start talking about it on Monday here on Green Dot Daily. See you later.